Conversations. My name is Alex. We're here in Melbourne on the lands of the Kulin Nation. Our guest for today is Timothy Wainwright. I'll ask him to tell you about himself in a minute. But what I will say is that he's one of Israel's top advisors on fire safety. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's begin by maybe telling us a little bit about your background, how you grew up, and specifically what part religion played in your life growing up.
My name is Timothy Wainwright.
From Sydney?
I'm from Sydney, Australia. My background is Christian, and my father was both a professional firefighter and also a Christian minister.
Of what denomination?
That was Methodist back in the day. And later on, he was in different churches as well.
Across New South Wales?
Yeah, across New South Wales.
How did he combine firefighting and being a minister?
Being a minister and a firefighter, that's interesting because when I was born in a country town, and when my parents were both young, in their early 20s, they're in the far west of New South Wales, and my father was doing ministry work plus also working as a firefighter. And because ministry work never paid a lot of money, so you had to have a trade, and so my dad's trade was firefighting. And he actually worked with Aboriginal communities as well, and he was taught Aboriginal bushfire techniques in his early 20s. He passed that knowledge on to me as I was growing up. And he also ran a company called Wainwright Fire Service, which provided bushfire services like hazard reduction burning. And I didn't know it, but I grew up using Aboriginal techniques as well as fire service techniques in a really unique way to protect houses. Yeah. And
so you followed one part of his career. Did you follow both parts of his career?
I did go to Bible college, and I have a partially completed diploma in theology. I'm a qualified counsellor as well. And of course I have numerous fire qualifications, including diplomas in firefighting management, emergency management, health and safety, and as well as fire protection systems and equipment. I have a license to provide building fire assessment in New South Wales. So each year, not all buildings, but some buildings require a certificate of compliance. So I provide those as well and I still do bushfire services as well, hazard reduction burning and emergency training as a company.
Yeah, but the interesting thing for our audience, I think, particularly our Jewish and Christian audience, is that over the last few years, you've delved into a different element of working with Israel. Can you tell us how that came about and why that came about?
Yeah, in 2018, I was first made aware of the kites, balloons causing fires. The governments were sending helium balloons and kites with burning coals across the border.
We're talking 2018, before the...
I saw this in 2018, and I saw they were having major fires, major problems, and they were having hundreds of fires every day because of this. And I saw these guys fighting fires in black t-shirts with basic equipment, like they didn't have any training. Turns out that was correct.
Did you have any connections to Israel at the time?
No. Well, no, I'm not Jewish. I don't have a connection.
Have you been to Israel?
I haven't been to Israel before. But I knew instantly that they needed help. And so I looked into how I could help.
Do you feel that came from potentially from your religious upbringing? Was Israel ever mentioned in your family?
Not really, except with the Bible, of course. And it's all through. That's what the Bible is. So I have that background. But to be honest, it was... I suppose you could say God created my heart the way He did, and I've lived my whole life trying to help other people. And so being able to use my skills and abilities in this way makes perfect sense, especially with people who, number one, desperately needed help, number two, were really appreciative and said, yes, please come and help.
So what did you do the first time?
Early 2019. I went to Israel for about a month. Yeah, on my own, and I provided the first ever organised firefighter training for the Kittok and Anok, which is the emergency response teams. And made up of volunteers from the communities, farmers and whatnot, that respond to emergencies. They do not have firefighting uniforms to protect from the heat of the fire, no gloves, no nothing, no basic equipment, no training.
They are official firefighters.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
They're not official firefighters.
They're volunteers?
Well,
Like the CFA
they're not
here?
No, not even that. They don't have a CFA. They have a fire rescue service, which is based in the major towns and cities, and they're very highly qualified, very well equipped, but there's not many of them. And the rural communities in Israel, the kibbutz or shalem, a lot of the time, if there's a fire, they won't actually get a fire truck because they're too far away. So they have to form their own emergency teams, which is what they have. So we are used to having a CFA or an RFS, whereas in Israel, they rely on themselves, and that's where I come in. Yeah, that's where.
So have you made a connection when you first went there the first time?
Yeah, well, before, of course, I met several communities were inviting me to come over through their regional councils, and that's how that was set up the first time. And I specifically were training the rough shots and also some of the actual teams under the rough shots, which is the security manager for each community.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they had their first ever fire training. They learned a lot about fire and how it works and techniques on how to attack the fire safely, because the way they were doing it was they were putting themselves under a lot of risk. They were losing equipment, they were getting burnt, and so I was able to help prevent that. And also simple things like wearing long sleeve clothing and hats and gloves that they can buy from a hardware store, and natural fibers, because they're wearing polyester t-shirts, it's their uniform t-shirts. And that melts to the skin if they get burnt, whereas cotton and wool doesn't melt to the skin. Simple stuff. And
so that first trip was 2019.
2019.
You've been there a few times since, I believe.
I've been 5 times in 5 years.
Wow. Including the COVID years.
No, I couldn't get in COVID. Everything here was shut down, and so I had to take a break during COVID, but we went back afterwards. And I did 2 one-month missions in 2024 alone because of the need, because of the war.
And that's during the war?
Yeah, that's during the war, and it was right afterwards. And
And as a non-Jew, how were you received, and did you feel safe there?
Yeah, I felt safe. I was very well received, especially with the communities I've already been to, and the ones that were new also. They were amazed that someone who's not Jewish would come to help during a war. That was pretty special. Feeling safe, mostly felt safe, but unnerving because Nitibah Sarah is right on the border of Gaza, and it's still officially evacuated even today. And then there was hardly anyone there except security team, and there was machine gun fire going off, artillery, airstrikes, underground tunnel systems were being detonated, and that was several hundred meters away. So it was loud. It was disconcerting, I suppose. It's not normal to hear that sort of stuff in Australia. Up north, there was more rocket issues. Hezbollah were shooting lots of rockets, and they were getting intercepted above where we were staying a lot. And it just happened to be that's where the interceptors were connecting with the rockets. And so we had to go to the shelter quite a bit, and building would shake, the windows would shake, loud booms. I felt a little bit scared at that point. I don't know if scared's the right word, but I was concerned. You get that sick feeling in your gut that this is not a good place to be, but where are you going to go? So,
wow, I mean, you have a choice, obviously, but you've kept coming back.
Actually, yeah, you're right. I could have not bothered. But I was there. I had a job to do. People needed the help.
And you feel like they've definitely learned some skills that they could implement now, even when you're not there.
Yeah, 100%. And that actually happened on October 7th with Nitibah Sarah.
One of the
right on the border. The second mission that we did there, we opened it up to farmers and anyone who wanted to come and do training. So not just the security team. And one of the farmers, Hilla Fenlon, came to the training session because she lives right next to a nature reserve, which is lots and lots of trees. And plus, she's surrounded by other farms and not warehouses, the greenhouses that are highly flammable material. So she's always worried about fires because there's hundreds of fires every year because of the rockets, the balloons, the kites. And so she wanted to do something about it. So I was able to advise her on what equipment she needed to go and buy. So she bought several fire hoses. I said she needed an additional fire hydrant to get water from.
This was before October 7th?
This is before October 7th. So she implemented all of that, and she wanted me to train her Thai workers. And so I went to train her Thai workers who didn't speak any English or Hebrew. I didn't speak any Hebrew or Thai. And so I had to use sign language and the best I could to show them what I meant, and they were really switched on. They learned very quickly, and within an hour they're connecting hoses and doing the techniques.
Amazing.
When October 7 happened, Hilla couldn't get to her farm, and so it was early morning the attacks happened, and she didn't know if her farm was going to still be there. She had to evacuate that evening with the rest of the community. She couldn't get back for 2-3 weeks, and when she did get back to her farm, she was escorted 1 hour only, and when she drove in, she saw every single farm, every building, every piece of equipment completely burnt, destroyed, except for her farm. It was standing. There was damage from some of the rocket shrapnel, but the equipment that covered all of her area was able to stop the fires and put any fires out that happened. And
because of the training you gave her?
She found that all the equipment, her farm was intact. The next thing she noticed was all the hoses were laid out and connected, and she talked with her workers who explained that they saved the farm using their equipment.
Because you taught them how to do it?
Because they knew what to do and they had the equipment to do it.
Amazing. Wow, so that must give you a lot of personal pride amongst the many other feelings.
It's to know that you've made a difference, and especially on such a horrible day, that you brought a positive out of it. It's a good feeling, and it's proof that what we're doing works. It's not just that, but guys have been telling us that they're putting out fires much quicker and easier with the techniques. They still lack uniforms. They still using a trailer to put out fast-moving grass fires. That it's not the best, but it's what they've got. And we've introduced new techniques and new equipment as well to put out spot fires using backpack blowers and the backpack sprayers. And there's certain ways to do it where you can be really effective, even just in a normal car, in a fire truck. And so we've increased their effectiveness and their safety. And I mean that's what everyone says.
And the goal is to continue to do this for a little while.
That's right. Well, my goal is to do it I want to go full time for 4 years. So I've been able to go approximately 1 month a year for 5 years. We make a big difference where we go, but there's no sustained progress with the program. For example, in Australia we have the CFA and the RFS. Every community has a shed with a fire truck and everyone's got uniforms and proper training. That doesn't exist. And so
the government doesn't fund it, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist at all in Israel. They have fire rescue service and they have some volunteer stations, but they're very few and far between. So almost every single community doesn't have anything. No system, no uniforms, no training, barely adequate equipment, and no concept of wildfire prevention. So,
which are mostly started they're not bushfires like we have here.
Yeah, the bushfires we have here mostly started by lightning, cigarettes, occasional arsonists, that sort of thing. In Israel, it's mostly arson that starts fires, plus cigarettes out the window and barbecues not put out properly. But the majority are from terror related, and rockets when they fall or get intercepted, they start fires. So it's very, very common. Plus, they do have some accidental causes too.
Sure.
And so my vision is to go for 4 years full time to establish regional training teams to keep the training going, because Tim Wainwright can't train 100 communities every year. It's not enough hours in the day.
And you've been going by yourself every time you've been recently? The
first time was by myself, and in the last 4 times after that was with my brother Alan, who's a trained firefighter and ex-army, and then I took my good mate Ben, who's from my military background.
Wow.
I wouldn't say military background, but he's a guy I know from the army. And
so you all have fire experience, obviously.
Yeah. And so Yeah, so two-man team's better than by myself.
Sure.
But to really establish this program and to have the Israelis adopt it and for it to grow and to become part of their system, I need to have a sustained effort. And I chose 4 years because of other projects. And in Israel, things do take a long time to actually happen and become normalized.
Yeah.
And that's why, and we need a sustained effort. 4 years full time. Need to raise significant funding to support that.
If you want to assist that, the Jewish National Fund, JNF, is assisting in those efforts.
Well, JNF, especially in this Green Sunday, they're raising enough money for us to train 10 communities and to also provide 10 equipment packages, and that includes the PPE, so fire uniforms, at least 4 or 5 uniforms, and firefighting equipment, as well as the training and wildfire assessments. 10 communities, 7 in the south, 3 in the north. And that's just the beginning.
Well, it is just the beginning. Let's see what you can make of it. Thank you very much. Just finally, we said at the beginning that your father was a pastor and that you did some Bible study as well. Do you feel like that what you're doing now has sort of come full circle? You know, you said Israel is mentioned often in the Bible. Do you feel a sense of mission when you're in Israel, coming full circle from your Christian background?
I certainly do, and I'll explain that. I believe that as Christians we are given different gifts. Everyone has a different spiritual gift. I honestly believe mine is service. Some are given the gift of prophecy, preaching, teaching. It seems that my gift is service and looking after people and keeping people safe, and that's what I've been motivated to do my whole life. And it comes from my mother and father, and as a Christian, it feels absolutely normal for me to be where I am, doing what I'm doing. I just feel it's a different country, different culture, but I feel at peace in Israel. Even with all the war going on, my heart feels like it's in the right place. I'm from Sydney, and my heart doesn't feel like it's in the right place.
Wow.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Wow, and thank you.
Right.
And on behalf of the Jewish people, on behalf of Israel, thank you again. I'm sure many people have thanked you and continue to thank you for the work that you do. Obviously, it's amazing work, it's incredible work, and it's really meaningful and impactful work, as you well know. May you continue to have success and thrive in the work that you're doing, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.